series, we chose a painting titled The Flesh Eaters by William Baziotes. Like the surrealists he admired and his fellow abstract expressionists, Baziotes was fascinated by the power of myth. Here, his title and imagery suggest the story of the Cyclops, the one-eyed giant who devoured the Odyssey's sailors in the Homer's epic poem. With his use of luminous colors and weird shapes, he creates a both repulsive and compelling piece of art that we thought was perfect to portray abstract expressionism.
As you may know, abstract expressionism emerged in America in the late 1940s and 1950s, also having international influence. It was characterized by spontaneous and subconscious creation, aiming to express deep emotions and personal experiences through abstract form. The movement arose in the context of the post-World War II era and the Cold War, and NYC became its focal point, with artists like Jackson Pollock and Mark Rothko leading the way. Annie and I aim to explore how abstract expressionism relates to American societal themes of its time, including its connections to the Cold War. To further explore these connections, we also looked at present-day reactions to a painting by William Baziotes, another abstract expressionist. We explored emotional interpretations of a painting by this artist through a series of interviews at our school.
Scared, like a little gloomy. It's kind of like a sad, scary thing. I'm all confused, like what it's supposed to be telling me.
Like there's some sense of anger, I feel, because of this, again, this like white and the black, but then there's some relief in the pink. I don't know, I think, and then, yeah, exactly, and the hard shapes and lines.
There's something dark about this, something ominous. Again, when I look at the first thing that comes is black. So black is the absence of light, dark absence of light. So I see a dark sky. I see, for me, that's an ominous figure reaching for something. I have not yet interpreted what the light blue object is. This makes me also think of, in terms of the shapes, Joan Miró. He's not abstract expressionist, but he's surrealist in Catalonia, but in a lot of his paintings he has those kind of dots with lines and dots, so I think of that as well. This, now that I think about it, looks to be some sort of like upright. It looks like some sort of a bird, like either a stork or a heron or a blue flamingo, if you will.
I mean, it's easier to do with realistic art just because there's more of a story to tell. In this photo, and like in this picture, it's just kind of like you take what you will. And like I think a lot of different people would have a lot of different interpretations, but I feel like with the color palette here, you can kind of assume what the author is trying to say.
I find it harder to connect with abstract art just because they usually don't give you much to go on, and it's all about interpretation. But I think it also depends on the colors.
I find it more difficult because when you have realistic art, whether regardless of the timepiece, it is meant to capture an actual moment. So it can be a portrait, it can be self-portrait, it can be still life, it can be landscape. And so the artist's intention is to communicate a feeling, to communicate an emotion, to communicate a message that's unspoken. So with that set in mind, I think that is all absent in abstract expressionism. So you are left to your own devices to make your own meaning of it. So it's more difficult. I think it leaves a lot of room for interpretation, but less so with connection, because you're making your own meaning of it. And that might be on your mood and your lived experiences, whereas a more realistic painting, you're kind of led to understand and to see what is actually being presented as it was painted.
It's trying to like make a statement. It seems like there's something like almost demonic about it, and like there's just a lot of like gloomy imagery, and it's just kind of like it's trying to like convey like a fearful expression. feeling.
Definitely some sort of contrast. That's what I'm getting from this. Maybe a storm. This could be some sort of, I don't know, it could be like either an animal or some sort of, I have no idea. Yeah, I don't know.
Capture. Something dark, powerful, evil is trying to capture and take hold of something that is a little bit more luminous, a little bit more lighthearted in a natural setting. Because now I'm interpreting this as a body of water and maybe like a grassland. So snatching something beautiful and natural away from its habitat.
And I think that a lot of times abstract art is supposed to, it's not really supposed to convey a message, but when you really look at it as I did today, like you can kind of make your own story out of it. So I think that, it's pretty cool.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
I think it's now, I mean, you have good questions. So I guess now I'm willing to look more into it than I usually do, because usually I don't look much into abstract art. Yeah, that's great.
As you mentioned before, I'm very into art, so this has not changed in my opinion. The only thing from 4 minutes ago until now that has changed is my interpretation of this painting. So I've been able to, the more I look at it, carve out what my interpretation of it is, but my understanding of abstract art has not changed.
In the post-war era, American artists were often torn between their personal ambitions and the societal and wartime demands for purposeful political art. This period was marked by intense anti-communism, leading to purges in American cultural circles. Ironically, most abstract expressionists did not even support democracy or capitalism. While their art was intended to be apolitical, focusing on the human experience, it was co-opted by the government and used politically. For example, the government, through the Museum of Modern Art, effectively promoted abstract expressionism as American art, even though artists like Pollock insisted it wasn't specifically American. The CIA also promoted art exhibits expanding globally to showcase the benefits of life and art under capitalism, exemplifying cultural hegemony. Despite the artists' intentions, their art was promoted and used in a manner they did not intend. Pollock was saying in 1944, "The idea of an isolated American painting so popular in the USA during the 1930s seems absurd to me. Just the idea of creating a purely American mathematics or physics would seem absurd."
Modernism was a movement pushing for art to be free from politics and let artists express themselves more freely. This led to the emergence of abstract art. Although it was hard to understand the message, abstract art gave artists more freedom of expression. One artist, Clement Greenberg, was a big advocate for modern art and pushed for abstract expression since artists were not confined to create certain things.